welcome to my channel. My name is Adina. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and on this channel we talk about astrology and we talk about spirituality. And in this video we will be getting into the chart for the full moon in Sagittarius. I was about to say in Gemini, but that's the one later on in the month. So in this video, we will be looking at the chart. I will be going through all the energy that we are moving through and that's being activated with this full moon in Sagittarius. So for the first portion of this video, we will look at the chart, go over all that general energy, and then the second portion, I will be getting into all 12 rising signs. So if you align with my energy and you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Now let's get right into the chart. Here's the chart for the full moon in Sagittarius. You can adjust this for your time zone. It is at 13 degrees, 18 minutes of Sagittarius. And so the sun is at 13 degrees, 18 minutes, and the moon is at 13 degrees and 18 minutes. So I have it here for my location. So it may be very late June 3rd or very early on June 4th, depending on your time zone. This moon is very, very interesting. So the dispositor of this new moon is Jupiter. Jupiter is up here in Taurus, conjunct the North Node. So this full moon is activating a lot of this Taurus energy with collectively with our financial systems, with our money. We have more of this energy. I feel like we've been talking about this for so long, even with that new moon we just had in Taurus. Well, Taurus is still a theme, even though it's not a moon in Taurus, the dispositor is still in Taurus. So we're still dealing with a lot of those Taurian themes and topics. And this really all has to do with the direction that we're moving into, because Jupiter's conjunct the North Node. And so this is shifting and changing the direction we are moving in when it has to do with our finances, our food supply, our housing, all of those things that we need to feel safe and secure. Now, the sun, which is in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, is also in Taurus. So that is why this moon is quite interesting, because we have the dispositor of the sun and the dispositor of the moon both in the same sign, which is Taurus. Taurus, and here's another little tidbit to the story, which really adds to this, is where collectively we are moving through all of this Taurus energy, finances, money, material possessions. Individually is where I think we feel this next level that I'm going to get into. So this, I feel like, is the collective kind of way, or the collective energy we will be moving into. But what rules Taurus? Venus. This is where I think a lot of us are moving through relationship stuff. Where is Venus? Venus is over here in Cancer, which Cancer is great. Venus does well in Cancer. But Venus is approaching that opposition to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So this can feel very intense. A lot of and we've been dealing with a lot of Pluto energy. And so this moon is also going to activate more of that Pluto energy, but this moon is going to have a lot to do with our relationships. And the whole month of June, we are dealing with a lot of sticky energy when it comes to Venus, which I will be making a video about Venus entering Leo. Venus will be in Leo from June till October. So she's in there for a long time, and that's because Venus is eventually going to retrograde in Leo in July, from July to September. So I will be making a separate video going all into that Venus energy. But there's a story playing out, and it's kind of starting now, where Venus is just getting ready to enter Leo. She's approaching that opposition to Pluto, and this moon is almost activating that and really starting it when it comes to this relationship stuff. I touched on it in another one of my videos, because shortly after Venus really forms that opposition to Pluto, A few days after that, Venus is going to form a T-square to the nodes. So a lot of energy that we will be moving through around this full moon and after this full moon, and what will be activated by this full moon is stuff when it has to do with our loves, our wants, our desires, our relationships, what we truly love, want, and need from our partners, what we require to feel safe, secure, loved. This is all coming up and being reprogrammed and reworked. It's being completely transformed with this Venus story that is playing out over the next few months. There's going to be a lot of experiences, people, energy coming up that we have to work through and release in order to move forward. And this will show up for everybody different, but with this Venus opposing Pluto can really bring up power struggles. It can bring up internal power struggles, but it can also bring up power struggles with your partner where it's a power struggle in that this is what I need to feel safe, secure, and loved, but that maybe they're not giving that to you, or there's this struggle when it has to do with feeling safe, secure, and loved, when it has to do with feeling complete and whole and desired, because that is what Venus represents for all of us. So this is something I really wanted to touch on with this moon, because Venus is a key player in this full moon coming up, which you wouldn't know just by looking at, oh, look, there's a full moon in Sagittarius. Somebody that doesn't know astrology isn't even going to think that Venus has anything to do with this full moon. But when you look at the chart, Venus is one of the main key players of this full moon. And the fact that Venus is opposing Pluto is going to feel intense and is going to bring up, well, this can even bring up things that are hidden. And it all depends on your situation, what you're moving through. So these are the things that you really want to be mindful of. A lot of what will be coming up, you will have to sit with. We have to develop those boundaries. And that is when you look, Saturn is sextiling Jupiter and forming a trine still to, not by exact, but still there. Saturn's forming that trine to the south node, which is that letting go, and that sextile to the north node, which is bringing in opportunity and support to move forward. And Saturn has to do with our boundaries. So this has to do with our boundaries, relationships, making sure that we are getting what we need to feel loved and we are giving that back. And there can be some kind of obsessions here. There can be some type of power and control dynamics. There can be things, if you're moving through a situation or you have a situation that there's something that's been hidden, this is a point where it can come to light, or there can be an obsession with figuring something out when it has to do with your relationships. That is what Pluto represents: obsessions, control, power, bringing secrets to light, bringing what is hidden to light. This is all, and with Venus, it's really about relationships and what we need to feel safe and secure. So this is just an energy that we really want to be aware of so we can work with it consciously. This is an energy we definitely need to work with consciously so that it's worked with in a way where first of all, it can feel intense. So we want to make sure we are understanding what we're moving through and why, and then understanding that there's something here that needs to be let go of. There's something here when Venus makes that T-square to the nodes, that's where you will feel whatever's activated here. When Venus makes that T-square to the nodes, that's when you're going to feel that real jolt into, I need to release this and let this go. And it will be, if you don't release it and let it go, you can't move to the north node. That's what these T-squares are. It's where we want to go in both directions, staying where we're comfortable or moving ahead, and you can't do both. And that's where these T-squares to the nodes become so challenging, is because there is a need to let something go, whether it is a partner, whether it is a program around relationships, whether it is maybe how you have always thought or maybe something you thought you always needed to feel loved, to feel desired. Maybe you're realizing that you have completely reprogrammed what you need to feel loved and desired. You no longer require that from somebody else because you truly have that inside, or you're reprogramming that in some way. That is what this energy can be about, is really discovering our own self-worth, our own true personal power when it comes to how we feel loved and feel worthy, because that's what Venus represents for us. So this is all energy that will be coming out, showing up for all of us very differently. So I really wanted to make this video because I'm not sure if a lot of astrologers will be touching on that, but Venus is such a prominent energy when it does come to this full moon in Sagittarius, just generally speaking. And the reason why I say the reason why is, so the reason why I say that we will be moving through relationship stuff is because collectively we are, because we will all be moving through it in some way, whether it has to do with our own self-love or relationships or our programs around that. But I say collectively, the money stuff, this can come up individually as well, of course, but to me, it just feels like collectively it's going to be more of that money stuff. And we've already been moving through it, so it makes sense that we are still moving through it. We have Mercury conjunct Uranus, which is Mercury is the ruler of the sun. And so this is also bringing in very unexpected energy where maybe there's a direction that you think you're taking when it comes to a certain circumstance that's being activated with this full moon, but something comes out of left field that you completely didn't expect. So that's another thing to be aware of, is that we do have Mercury conjunct Uranus, which within like the thing is like the next day that conjunction comes exact. So definitely something else that we want to be aware of. And at the same time, we have Venus just coming out of that trine to Neptune. And so with Venus and Neptune, this can be something where maybe you were not seeing a situation clearly, and maybe I can never say this word, and I tried to say it, am I over idealizing? I don't know why I can't say that word, but looking at something with rose-colored glasses on when it has to do with your relationships, and with this opposition, it's like kind of comes in your face of, okay, well, maybe that's not what I thought it was, something like that. Even though trines are very positive, this is a great energy with this trine, like it's a great energy for creativity and all of that. But because we're talking about the full moon and Venus is approaching that opposition, there can be an aspect of something that is not clear when it comes to what is going on here. So just something else to be mindful of. But that's pretty much everything that I really wanted to talk about in this full moon video. I will be getting into all 12 rising signs. So I will go through all of this energy and how it will be showing up for all of you more personally. So let's get right into that. Again, if you align with my energy and enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe, like this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Let me know if you have any questions about any of this chart, this full moon, or anything. I would be happy to help. And yeah, let's get right into the all signs forecast. Aries, you have this full moon happening in your 9th house of higher education, higher wisdom, higher knowledge, philosophy, your belief systems, and also long distance travel. So this full moon will really be highlighting all of these themes and topics for you. You have the ruler of this full moon, which is Jupiter, in your 2nd house now in Taurus, which your 2nd house represents your money, your finances, your material possessions, also your values, your self-worth. So this full moon is not only highlighting your 9th house themes and topics, but also highlighting your 2nd house themes and topics. And so you may find that this full moon is really bringing up value things that around your values, when it has to do with how your values have changed with your self-worth, your self-love, your what you truly need, want, and desire, because this is all ruled by Venus. So Venus, and if you watch the first portion of this video where I went into the chart and I started talking about the Venus opposition to Pluto, which you currently have Venus in your 4th house and Pluto in your 11th, you may find that there is a lot of power dynamics going on right now with your with your relationships, possibly your friendships, but that may be even affecting your home and your family. So this is definitely something to be mindful of. But overall, Aries, this full moon is really highlighting financial things for you, your money, your finances, your material possessions, and maybe even also showing you how your belief systems have changed when it has to do with your values, especially with your your self-worth and just your values in general, and reprogramming your values. Taurus, you have this full moon happening in your 9th house of taxes, inheritance, money coming in from outside resources, also your partner's finances. The 8th house can also represent psychological healing and transformation of some kind. So there is a lot being highlighted here when it has to do with these 8th house themes and topics. Now you have the ruler of this full moon in your 1st house, which is Jupiter now in Taurus in your 1st house. And so a lot of what is being highlighted here has to do with you and how far you've really truly come on your journey, what you've accumulated, the knowledge you've accumulated, the wisdom, and how much psychological transformation and growth you've really accumulated over the last few months. There is a lot here being highlighted and restructured and reprogrammed, Taurus, when it has to do with how you view this physical reality. If you watched the first portion of this video when I got into the chart, I talked a lot about that Venus opposition to Pluto and how there is a lot being highlighted when it has to do with relationships and power dynamics. This can also be highlighted for you because Venus is your chart ruler. And so with Venus opposing Pluto, you are really feeling this transformational energy and feeling like there is something that you need to let go of in order to take those next steps forward. Gemini, you have this full moon happening in your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, close personal connections, even business partnerships. So a lot of these themes and topics will be highlighted with this full moon when it has to do with all of your close personal connections. You have the ruler of this full moon, which is Jupiter, currently transiting through your 12th house of endings, spirituality, self-undoing, it can also represent very karmic fated energy. And so this can really, now this is going to show up for everybody differently. And of course, take what is in alignment with you. But this can really highlight endings of relationships where something is just finally coming to an end. If you watched the first portion of this video where I got into the chart and I went over that Venus opposition to Pluto, this is where you can really just be, you currently have Venus in your 2nd house, which can represent your worth, your values. And this can be a time of just finally realizing that all of your close personal connections, maybe you're not truly getting what you need. Maybe your values have been completely reprogrammed. And this is a realization of that. This is a huge spotlight on what you truly need, want, and desire, what you need to feel satisfied, how your values have changed, and what you need to feel whole. And so anybody that is not in alignment with you, this can be a time where you are just completely cutting them out of your life. So definitely something that you want to be aware of. And it doesn't necessarily have to be challenging, because if somebody is not in alignment with you or there for you for your greater good, it is better that they go and you release them. And so this can be a time where you're really feeling the tension when it has to do with that. Cancer, you have this full moon happening in your sixth house of health, work, and daily routine. So all of those themes and topics are being highlighted with this full moon. The sixth house can also represent your nutrition habits and what you do day to day. The ruler of this full moon, which is Jupiter, is currently in your 11th house of friendships, online connections, social media, also your hopes and dreams. And so there is a lot here being highlighted where maybe you are deciding that you want to put something online that has to do with working out or nutrition, something along those lines, or maybe even starting something with your friends. Now, if you watch the first portion of this video where I got into the chart, I got into that opposition between Venus and Pluto, and you currently have Venus in your first house. So you may have found that since Venus has been in your first house the last few weeks, there's been a lot of focus on what you truly love, need, want, and desire. Maybe even reprogramming how you view this physical reality, what you need, maybe even changing your appearance some way. And with Pluto being in your in your 8th house of psychological healing, transformation, death and rebirth, and also money coming in from outside resources in your partner's finances, those themes and topics are really, there is some tension around that because it's an opposition between Venus and Pluto. This can also have you realizing that there's something that needs to be released here in order for you to take that final step in transformation that you've been moving through over the last few weeks since Venus has been transiting through your first house. So there is a lot going on here, Cancer, but it really is beautiful, and there's not much challenging energy here at all other than the opposition between Venus and Pluto. But this really all has to do with the realization of your psychological transformation and possibly letting something go. Leo, you have this full moon happening in your 5th house of play, passion, creativity, and also your children. So all of those themes and topics will be highlighted with this full moon. You have the ruler of this full moon, which is Jupiter, currently in your 10th house of work, public, your career, your public reputation, and the legacy you leave behind after your working years. And so this can really have you wanting to create something, dive into your creativity and put something out into the world, really create something that has to do with your work and your career, really getting into something that you're passionate about and making a career out of it. This can really be at the forefront and what is activated with this full moon. Now, if you watch the first portion of this video, I got into the chart and I went over that opposition between Venus and Pluto, and you currently have Venus in your 12th house of endings, karma, spirituality, self-undoing, also places that are hidden. And Pluto is currently in your 7th house of partnerships and relationships. And so there is a tension here when it has to do with your partners, your partners, close personal connections and your relationships, and even possible endings. And so you may find that this full moon is also highlighting people that are just no longer in alignment with you. Maybe people that you finally realize that you need to let go of in order to take those next steps on your journey and really follow your passions and what you're passionate about. Virgo, you have this full moon happening in your 4th house of home, family, property, your roots, your parents. And so those themes and topics will all be highlighted with this full moon in Sagittarius. You have the ruler of this full moon, which is Jupiter, currently in your 9th house. Your 9th house has to do with long distance travel, higher education, higher knowledge, philosophy, and also your belief systems. So there is something here being highlighted when it has to do with your home and family, and maybe possibly your belief systems or even traveling. So definitely something to be aware of. Maybe you're even going away on a trip with your family, or there may be something that has to do with your home and family and your belief system, something around that. And then if you watch the first portion of this video where I got into the chart and I talked about that opposition between Venus and Pluto, and you currently have Venus in your 11th house in Cancer, and Pluto is still in your 6th house of your daily routine. So there is some type of tension here when it has to do with what you are doing day to day, or even your health routine and what you're putting online, or your friendships. So there may be something that needs to be released and let go here in order to move forward. Libra, you have this full moon highlighting your third house of community, neighbors, your local environment, your neighborhood, even your siblings and your cousins, and also communicating, publishing, reading, writing. All of those themes and topics are really being highlighted with this full moon. Now, you have the ruler of this full moon in your eighth house of psychological transformation, taxes, inheritance, also money coming in from outside resources, and your partner's finances. So these themes and topics are really all coming to the forefront, Libra. Now, if you watched the first portion of this video where I got into the chart for the full moon, I went over that opposition between Venus and Pluto, and you currently have Venus in your 10th house of career, public reputation, the legacy that you leave behind after your working years, and you have Pluto in your 5th house of your passion, your play, passion, creativity, and children. And so you may find that there is tension when it has to do with your career and what you truly enjoy in your creativity and your passions. There may be something that really needs to be let go here, Libra, in order to move forward. There's some type of transformation taking place when it has to do with your career and what you truly love, need, want, and desire, and what you're passionate about. Scorpio, you have this full moon highlighting your second house of your money, your finances, your material possessions, also your values and your self-worth. So those themes and topics are all being highlighted, Scorpio, with this full moon in Sagittarius. The ruler of this full moon, which is Jupiter, is currently in your 7th house of relationships, close personal connections and partnerships, even business partnerships. So there is something here that is being highlighted around relationships, and especially with that opposition between Venus and Pluto. And if you watch the first portion of this video where I got into the chart for the full moon, there's something here that there is a lot of tension here around your relationships and partnerships, and maybe even people that are no longer in alignment with you. There may be a need to let people go or settle something that even has to do with how far you've come on your journey and the reprogramming of your values. There is something being highlighted here, Scorpio, on if you are not getting and receiving what you truly need, want, and desire in your relationships and feeling loved, there you will feel this tension to let go of who is no longer in alignment with you, where it's like there's no more settling. There's this thing being highlighted to where if you are no longer giving me what I need, I'm sorry, I have to cut you out. And so this is really interesting, Scorpio. Comment below because I really want to see how this shows up for you. Sagittarius, you have this full moon happening in your first house, which represents you, your character, your personality, your physical body, how you view this physical reality. So this full moon is really highlighting you. This is your full moon. Now, the ruler of this full moon, which is your chart ruler, Jupiter, is currently in Taurus, which is in your 6th house of health, work, and daily routine. So you may find that a lot of those themes and topics are coming up for you. Maybe you're deciding to start a new health routine to really get into your nutrition, become healthier in some way, or maybe even start something new when it has to do with work. Or if you are an employer, there can be something highlighted here around your employees because the 6th house also represents employees. Now, if you watch the first portion of this video, where I went into the chart and I went over that Venus opposition to Pluto, you currently have Venus in your 8th house, which represents taxes, inheritance, money coming in from outside resources, even your partner's finances, and also Pluto, which is now currently in your 3rd house of community, neighbors, speaking, writing, vehicles, and your local environment, your local community. And so with this opposition, you may actually find that there is something here that is being highlighted when it has to do with money coming in from outside resources. If this is applicable to you or aligns with you, if you're trying to receive money, this can also have to do with your partner's finances. There is tension here, and something does need to be worked through and released in order to move forward. Capricorn, you have this full moon highlighting your 12th house of endings, self-undoing. The 12th house is also very spiritual. The 12th house can also represent places that are hidden, like hospitals, asylums, retreat centers, jail. I'm not saying you're going to jail at all by any means, but the 12th house can also be very spiritual. It can also have you really wanting to isolate or just come away from the world for a little bit and have some alone time. So the full moon is really highlighting that for you. Now you have the ruler of this full moon currently in your 5th house, which the ruler of this full moon is Jupiter in Taurus in your 5th house, and your 5th house represents play, passion, creativity, even children. And so all of these themes and topics are really being highlighted for you, Capricorn, where maybe you are wanting to take some time away from the world to focus more on what you are passionate about, to dive into your creativity, or maybe even to spend time with your children. Now, if you watch the first portion of this video where I went into the chart for the full moon, I went over that opposition between Venus and Pluto, and you currently have Venus in your 7th house of your close personal connections, your relationships, and all your close personal partnerships, and Pluto is currently in your 2nd house of your money, your finances, and your material possessions, and also your values and your self-worth. And so there is tension here being highlighted between your relationships and your values or your money. So there may be something here that is activated where there is a need to release and let go of something, maybe even people that are no longer in alignment with you when it has to do with the reprogramming of your values, maybe even realizing people that are no longer in alignment with you and that you truly are not getting what you need, want, and desire from those people anymore, and there's a need to let go. Aquarius, you have this full moon highlighting your 11th house of social media, humanitarian pursuits, online connections, also your friendships and your hopes and dreams. And so all of those themes and topics are all really being highlighted for you, Aquarius, with this full moon. Now you have the ruler of this full moon, which is Jupiter, currently in your 4th house of home and family, property, your roots. And so there is something here being highlighted that something may be coming up with what you are putting online, and possibly your home and family, your property, or maybe even finally getting into your dream home, because the 11th house represents hopes and dreams, and then Jupiter being in your 4th house. So maybe you were building your dream home or buying your dream home. There is something here being highlighted around that, if that is applicable to you. Now, if you watch the first portion of this video when I got into the chart for the full moon and I went over that opposition between Venus and Pluto, you currently have Venus in your 6th house of health, work, daily routine, your nutrition, and you have Pluto now in your 1st house. So you are currently moving through quite a lot of transformation, and I'm sure you have felt a lot over the last few months. However, there is something here, there is tension between you and maybe even something that needs to be let go of when it has to do with your daily routine or your health or nutrition. So this is something interesting. This is definitely something that will be highlighted with this full moon. You may feel that there is a need to let go of something that you are doing day to day that just is no longer in alignment with you and the direction that you are moving into. Pisces, you have this full moon highlighting your 10th house of career, public reputation, the legacy you leave behind after your working years. So all of these themes and topics are really coming up for review and being highlighted, Pisces, with this full moon. You have the ruler of this full moon, which is Jupiter, currently in your 3rd house of community, neighbors, siblings, cousins, even speaking, writing, communicating, publishing, also vehicles. And so those themes and topics are also coming up for review, Pisces. So you may find that there is something that has to do with speaking or communicating and your career, or something that you are putting out into the world or wanting to publish, and you definitely have the energy there to support it, Pisces. Now, if you watch the first portion of this video, when I got into into the chart for the full moon, I went over that opposition between Venus and Pluto, and you currently have Venus in your 5th house in Cancer, which your 5th house represents play, passion, creativity, and also children, and you have Pluto, which is currently in your 12th house. And so there is something here, there is tension here where it has to do with your passions, your creativity, and what you truly find joy in, and maybe needing to isolate from the world, take a time out in order to get back into what you truly love and desire. And maybe that is what you are putting out into your career. Maybe there is a need to take a step away from the world, get back into your creativity and your passions, do some writing, do some journaling, create something that really has to do with your career and putting something out into the world. You definitely have the energy here, Pisces, that if this is applicable to you and aligns with you, you have the energy here to support that.